So choose your mate wisely, and that's perhaps the good segue into sexual selection in humans.
I could tell you're good at this. Why did I bring up sexual selection? It's the relationships. So sexual selection in humans. I don't think you've done an episode on relationships.
No, I did an episode on attachment,
right?
But not on relationships. The series with Conti includes one episode of the 4 that's all about relational understanding and how to select a mate based on matching of drives. And
all the demons inside the subconscious, how to match demons, that they dance well together, or what?
And how generative 2 people are.
What does that mean?
Means that how the way he explains it is how devoted to creating growth within the context of the family, the relationship with work.
Well, let me ask you about mating rituals and how to find such a relationship. I mean, you're really big on friendships, on the value of friendships.
I am.
And that, I think, extends itself into one of the deepest kinds of friendships you can have, which is a romantic relationship. What mistakes, successes, and wisdom can you impart?
Well, I've certainly made some mistakes. I've also made some good choices in this realm. First of all, we have to define what sort of relationship we're talking about. If one is looking for a life partner, potentially somebody to establish family with or without kids, with or without pets, right? Families can take different forms. I certainly experienced being a family in a prior relationship where it was the 2 of us and our 2 dogs, and it was family, like we had our little family. I think based on my experience and based on input from friends who themselves have very successful relationships, I must say I've got friends who are in long-term, monogamous, very happy relationships where there seems to be a lot of love, a lot of laughter, a lot of challenge, and a lot of growth. And both people, it seems, really want to be there and enjoy being there.
Just to pause on that, one thing to do, I think, by way of advice, is listen to people who are in long-term successful relationships. That's it seems dumb, but we both know and are friends with Joe Rogan, who's been in a long-term, really great relationship, and he's been an inspiration to me. So you take advice from that guy.
Definitely. And several members of my podcast team are in excellent relationships. I think one of the things that rings true over and over again in the advice and in my experience is, find someone who's really a great friend. Like, build a really great friendship with that person. Now, obviously not just a friend if we're talking romantic relationship, but, and of course, sex is super important, but it should be a part of that particular relationship alongside or meshed with the friendship. Can it be a majority of the positive exchange? I suppose it could, but I think the friendship piece is extremely important because what's required in a successful relationship clearly is joy in being together, trust, a desire to share experience, both mundane and more adventurous, support each other, acceptance, a real maybe even admiration, but certainly delight in being with the person. Earlier we were talking about peace, and I think that sense of peace comes from knowing that the person you're in friendship with or that you're in romantic relationship, or ideally both, because let's assume the best romantic relationship includes a friendship component with that person. It's like you just really delight in their presence, even if it's a quiet presence. And you delight in seeing them delight in things, right? That's clear. The trust piece is huge, and that's where people start. We don't want to focus on what works, not what doesn't work, but that's where I think people start engaging these covert contracts. They're afraid of being betrayed, so they betray. They're afraid of giving up too much vulnerability, so they hide their vulnerability. or in the worst cases, they feign vulnerability. Again, that's a covert contract that just simply undermines everything. It becomes 1 + 1 = 2 - 1 to infinity. Conversely, I think if people can have really hard conversations, this is something I've had to work really hard on in recent years and that I'm still working hard on. But the friendship piece seems to be the thing that rises to the top when I talk to friends who are in these great relationships. It's like they have so much respect and love and joy in being with their friend. It's the person that they want to spend as much of their non-working, platonic friendship time with, and the person that they want to experience things with and share things with. And it sounds so kind of canned and cliche nowadays, but I think if you step back and examine how most people go about finding a relationship, so like, oh, like, am I attracted? Of course, physical attraction is important and other forms of attraction too. And they sort of enter through that portal, which makes sense. That's the mating dance, right? That's the peacock situation. That's hopefully not the cuttlefish situation. But I think that there seems to be a history of people close to me getting into great relationships where they were friends for a while first, or maybe didn't sleep together right away.
Yeah.
That they actually intentionally deferred on that. This has not been my habit or my experience. I've gone the more, I think, typical, like, oh, there's an attraction, like this person, there's an interest. You kind of explore all dimensions of relationship really quickly, except perhaps the moving in part and the having kids part, which ideally, because it's a bigger step, harder to undo without more severe consequences. But I think the whole take it slow thing, I don't think is about getting to know someone slowly. I think it's about that physical piece, because that does change the nature of the relationship. And I think it's because it gets right into the more hardwired primitive circuitry around our feelings of safety, vulnerability. There's something about romantic and sexual interactions where it's almost like it's like assets and liabilities, right? Where people are trying to figure out how much to engage their time and their energy in multiple people. I'm talking about from both sides, male, female, or whatever sides. But where it's like assets and liabilities, and that's where it starts getting into those complicated contracts early on, I think. And so maybe that's why if a really great friendship and admiration is established first, even if people are romantically and sexually attracted to one another, then that piece can be added in a little bit later in a way that really kind of just seals up the whole thing. And then who knows, maybe they spend 90% of their time having sex. I don't know. That's not for me to say or decide, obviously, but there's something there about staying out of a certain amount of risk of having to engage covert contract in order to protect oneself.
But I do think like love at first sight, this kind of idea is in part realizing very quickly that you're great friends. Like I've had that experience of friendship recently. It's not really friendship, but like, oh, you get each other with humans, not in a romantic setting.
Right, friendship.
Yeah, just friendship.
Well, but dare I say, I felt that way about you when we met, right?
But we
I was
also
like, this dude's cool, and he's smart, and he's funny, and he's driven, and he's giving, and he's got an edge, and like, I want to learn from him, want to hang out with him. Like that. I mean, that was the beginning of our friendship, was essentially, that set of internal realizations.
Just keep going. Like, keep
and
going
a sharp dresser.
It just looks great shirtless on horseback. Yes.
No. Listen, I mean, it's despite what some people might say on the internet, it's a purely platonic friendship.
Somebody asked if Andrew Huberman has a girlfriend, and somebody says, I think so. And the third comment was, this really breaks my heart, like that Lex and Andrew are not an item.
We are not. We are great friends, but we are not an item. Yeah, it's true. Well, it's official. I hear over and over again from friends that have made great choices and awesome partners and have these fantastic relationships for long periods of time that seem to continue to thrive. At least that's what they tell me, and that's what I observe. Establish the friendship first. And give it a bit of time before sex. And so, I think that's the feeling. That's the feeling. And we're talking micro features and macro features. We're talking, and this isn't about perfection. It's actually about the imperfections, which is kind of cool. I like quirky people. I like characters. I'll tell you where I've gone badly wrong and where I see other people going badly wrong. If there is no rule that says that you have to be attracted to all attractive people by any means, it's very important to develop a sense of taste in romantic attractions. I believe what you really like in terms of a certain style, a certain way of being. And of course that includes sexuality and sex itself, the verb, but I think it also includes their just general way of being, and when you really adore somebody, you like the way they answer the phone. And when they don't answer the phone that way, something's off and you want to know. And so I think that the more you can tune up your powers of observation, not looking for things that you like, and the more that stuff just kind of washes over you, the more likely you are to quote unquote fall in love. As a mutual friend of ours said to me, listen, when it comes to romantic relationships, if it's not 100% in you, it ain't happening. And I've never seen a violation of that statement where it's like, it's mostly good and they're this and this, like the negotiations. Well, already it's doomed. And that doesn't mean someone has to be perfect. The relationship has to be perfect, but it's got to feel 100% inside. Like yes, and yes.